Hi, everyone. It's Jaime Jo Wright here at Madlit Musings. And today I have with us a return author and a good friend, Katie Powner. Hey, Katie.
Hi, Jamie. How are
And
you?
I'm good.
And
I'm good. And you brought your friend.
yes, and Moline is with me.
I love having Moline. Moline, thank you and welcome to the show. And for those of you who are not watching on YouTube, Moline is, does she know she's stuffed or should I not say that out loud? She's a
Well, you just did, so.
Don't listen, Moline. She's a stuffed cow and she's wearing red pearls and she's absolutely adorable.
She's my mascot and my social media assistant.
Yes, and she does a good job. She really cheers you on well. And I've been blessed. I was able to meet Moline in person. So that was
That's
really
true.
cool.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
great.
Not a lot of people can say that.
No, no, they can't because you are off in the wilds of Montana. And that's not exactly next door to a lot of the writerly
We
things that
don't
happen.
make appearances very often. Yeah.
That's the problem when so many of the writer and reader retreat things happen in like the Midwest or California or something. It's just not feasible to get to those places.
Right. It's not from here.
Nope, nope, not at all. So, all right. Well, now that I've outed you as living in Montana, um, you are the author of this will be your fourth book now coming out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And it's called The Wind Blows in Sleeping Grass. That's a cool title. I just want to say that's really cool. Where did that
It
come
is.
from? All right. Tell us the story
Yeah.
behind the title.
Well, first of all, the title is a little bit of a mouthful. I've had a lot of people kind of stumble over it, and I've thought, man, maybe it's a little too long, but it's too late now. It doesn't matter. So
It's on the cover now, so you're
it
tied
doesn't
into
matter
it.
now. It's too late. Yeah. So the fictional town in the story is called Sleeping Grass,
Oh.
and it's set in northern Montana in the prairie lands
Mhm.
where it's very windy all the time up
Mhm.
on the High Line. And so the wind blows in sleeping grass,
Okay.
kind of comes naturally, and
Yeah.
the wind plays a big part in the story. So,
Okay. Like the literal wind or like the winds of change?
both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. So tell us a little bit about the story. What's the general synopsis? Because as authors, we love that question.
Yeah, we love it so much.
I
It's our
know.
favorite
Tell me what
question.
your book's about. I don't know.
Yeah. So, well, like I said, it's set in northern Montana in a really small rural place,
Mhm.
isolated. And it's about Pete, who's a 50-year-old guy who lives alone with his pot-bellied pig, Pearl.
Oh gosh, I
And
love it
him and
already.
Pearl pick up trash for the town of Sleeping Grass. And from his garbage truck, he sees kind of a whole other side of the town that most people don't get to see.
Mm.
And because of that, he ends up running into lots of shenanigans that then I'll leave that part out so I don't spoil it. But that's the gist of it. Yeah.
That's awesome. What a neat perspective from the garbage man. You know, I never thought about that before. They probably
Yeah.
do see a lot. And not to mention they see people's garbage. So that says a lot about families
Right.
too.
My brother is actually a garbage man, and
Okay.
I got the idea from him because he would mention how just things that he would notice because people don't pay any attention to you when you're the garbage man. You're just
Mm.
kind of there coming and going.
Yeah.
You're part of the scenery and they don't pay attention. So you notice what they're doing, what they're throwing away, what kinds
Hmm.
of things are happening in their alley when you go down to pick up the can,
Sure.
but they don't really notice you. And so he would tell me stories about things like that, and that's what gave me the idea.
That is so fascinating. Also, I have to say right now, everybody, thank your garbage men because
Hmm.
seriously, that
Yes.
can't be a fun job and they work super hard.
Yeah. And just imagine what life would be like without them.
Oh, it would be stinky, literally.
Yeah. So for sure.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I go to church with I have a friend at church. They're probably listening to this podcast. So Chip, here's your moment of fame. But his wife and I were chatting and discovered that her husband, like before we knew each other, her husband happened to be our garbage man. And all of a sudden putting a face to the name of the person that hauls away your garbage, you're like, you are a bona fide hero, like for
Yes.
real.
Exactly. Exactly. And the more that I researched for this and the more that I wrote about Pete and his adventures, the more I came to appreciate the
I believe
garbage
it.
man.
I
Yeah.
believe it. I believe it. Well, it's such a neat perspective too, because when I think when you are that silent witness, there's probably a lot of junk in people's lives that you see. Not the pun was not intended when I said junk either, but just the stuff that you're witnessing, and it sounds like that's kind of where you went with the story.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right. So does Pearl, the potbelly pig, ride along with Pete in the garbage truck?
Yes, she does.
Oh my gosh, this is better and better every step.
So
I love
I
it.
have Pearl here now. So here's Pearl.
Oh, she's adorable. She looks really soft and squishy.
Yeah, she is.
I love it. Did you make her?
I did not. There's
Okay.
a high school girl at the local farmers market
Okay.
who designs and crochets all of these little critters, and I asked if she could do a pearl, and so she custom made this for me.
That is the best.
Yeah.
That looks like it's that really soft chenille type yarn too.
Yes.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. Well, now you've got Moulin and you have Pearl. I love it. And
Yep.
didn't you have a goat in one of your past books, or am I just completely imagining
Yep.
that?
There was a goat named Smelly Melly. Yep.
Y'all, if you have not read these books, you are completely not just missing out, but you're actually undermining your own personal joy. I'm just going to say that.
I like that.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that should be on a t-shirt. So
I think so. I think so. I will put that on an endorsement for your books right there. You're undermining your own
that
personal
sounds
joy if you do
yeah,
not read Katie Powner's books. Oh man.
great.
Okay, so we have Montana, we have a potbelly pig, we have a garbage man who sees all sorts of things, but I'm guessing there's other characters that kind of weave in and out of the story as well that maybe we should get to know, or
So the other point of view character is Wilma, and she's an 80-year-old widow, and she's on Pete's route. And
okay.
so through the garbage truck, they end up meeting.
Yeah.
They fall into each other's lives. So
Mhm.
she has a connection to Pete's past when he was a kid
Okay.
that he doesn't know about.
Mm.
So that's a big part of the story as well. And then her housekeeper, Lily,
Mhm.
comes into play, and Pete has a crush on Lily. So there's a little bit of a love story there.
Mhm.
And then Pete's best friend is named Windy Ray.
Okay.
And Windy Ray is Pete's only friend. Pete's a loner. He just kind of keeps to himself. Windy Ray's his only friend, and he is also an older man. So
Mhm.
most of the characters
Yeah.
are older than
Yeah, I like that too. And us that are approaching middle age, we need some representation in books.
yeah. So
I'm kind of laughing because you were talking about Pete being a 50-some-year-old man, and I'm sitting here picturing like this older man, like my fatherly type, and then I'm suddenly realizing how old my husband is, and I'm going, okay, then,
yeah.
yeah, that's my age group coming
It's
up.
not that old.
It's not that far away.
Yeah.
Oh man. So when you think about the story and you think about the characters in the story, did you have an overall theme that you were going for from a spiritual standpoint, or was it just kind of a story of lives that interweave life?
I mean, a little bit of both, because I think from the very beginning, because Pete's a garbage man, and because of that whole idea of picking up trash and like seeing what people throw away, that whole idea, of course, just sort of lent itself to like one man's trash is another man's
Yeah.
treasure type of an idea. That whole idea that what some people might cast aside, whether it's things or people that people will think are not important and will cast aside, other people will think is special, and valuable. So that's a big theme in the story for sure. Yeah. And then also, like you said, the idea of just these people's lives weaving together, how you just never know who, your garbage man, your neighbor, whoever that you might run into, you just never know what's going on with them, how your life intersect, and how special you might be to each other if you give each other a chance.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's for people who haven't had the privilege of living in a small community. I think that concept of Mr. Rogers' neighborhood is a little bit more foreign. But really that's kind of what it's like when you have these small communities, whether they're Montana or Wisconsin, like here where I'm at. And you really do either get to know each other's business, or you really hide your business, because once it's out, the whole town knows.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah. So in Sleeping Grass, there's about 1,200 people in Sleeping
Okay.
Grass.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody kind of knows what's going on with everybody. And that's one reason Pete, he tries to keep himself, doesn't want attention, doesn't want
Mm-hmm.
people, poking their business
Yeah.
into his business. But of course, ends up failing at that and, putting himself out there. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. Have you ever had kind of those experiences in your small town experience where you're like, people just go away, just go?
Well, what happens is my husband is the manager at the hardware store.
Okay.
And so pretty much every person in town goes through that store
Mm-hmm.
by the end of the week, throughout the course of a week, everybody in town has been in there
Right.
at some
Right.
point.
Yeah.
So he gets a lot of news, a lot of gossip, a lot of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then, and it happened just this morning, then he'll walk out of the house, or he'll run to the post office and everybody's like, "Hey Sandy, hey, hey Sandy, look, there's hey Sandy," and he's like a celebrity. And so that it does, sometimes you kind of do wish you could just be a little more anonymous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I get that. I get that. So, okay, so here's a loaded question. You're Andy and you're working in the local hardware store. I'm putting your husband on the spot here. And you find out all the secrets of the town and all the, ins and outs. Like what's our responsibility? What do you think our responsibility as community members, Christians, family, because we live in the same town, what's our responsibility to do with some of this information that we may inadvertently or purposefully come into?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think for the most part, it's purposeful because people will tell him,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be
Mm-hmm.
totally different. If he was
Yeah.
overhearing something that wasn't for him, he would not engage with that at all.
Right.
But we're talking about people actually telling him to his face, so that's now public information for the most
Mm-hmm.
part.
Mm-hmm.
And, that is interesting because sometimes it will be something that's like a need, or
Mm-hmm.
something that is like, hey, I could help with that. And actually, because one time it was a lady who she just was having a hard time. This was an older lady, and she was trying to buy like a weed whacker, I think, or
Okay.
something, because she thought, I don't know how I'm going to get this yard cleaned up and all this stuff because my husband got hurt and all this stuff. Well, he told me about that. I was like, I can do that. I took my boys and we went to her house and we cleaned her yard, you know?
I
And
love that.
that's just not, that's something that you can do in a place
Yeah.
like this. And that's not something that just anyone could do in any place.
Oh,
Obviously, I
right.
realize
Right.
that's, this sort of a special case,
Mm-hmm.
but I do feel some responsibility too. If
Yeah.
there's a need that comes up or something, then I'm like,
Right.
I can do something about this, or someone who can.
Right.
know, he's sort of like the middleman. Like someone tells him something, it's like, well, we can't help you with that. We don't know anything about it, but he knows this other guy, you know,
Yeah.
and we can sometimes connect them, and we've done that too.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it kind of, I don't know, it's sort of like the watering hole.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, no, that's really true. And for those of us, or for those of the people that are listening who are like, I don't relate to that kind of small town, because if somebody
Yeah.
showed up in my yard and mowed my grass, I'd have an issue. But
Right.
you can kind of dial it back too, and even look at your church community, or some of those smaller communities that you're part of that might be a big city, but yet you're in your church. And it's neat, because I was just kind of along those lines. I was out of town for my dad's 80th birthday, so I wasn't able to be there, and I had just posted something about it on Facebook, and the next thing I know, someone from church had gone over, they'd taken balloons, they'd baked him a cake, and it's just that small town community
Yeah, I
idea
love
of
that. Yeah.
helping when the other
Mhm.
person can't be there, and that
Yeah,
family element.
exactly. Yeah. That
Yeah.
community. And
Yeah.
I love that about our town. And so I think a lot of that tends to come out in my books, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of community, small town
Yeah.
family type.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think a lot of people relate to that small town and that more rural setting too. Because you don't see that pictured as much in books nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of
Yeah.
books are taking place in Chicago or Milwaukee or New York or more suburbs and things like that, and urban areas. And then there's those of us stuck out in the sticks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all I really know. I've never lived,
Me neither.
in the city. This is my life. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things to do, is go to the local coffee shop in the morning and see, like, feels like half the town
Yep.
is there getting their coffee. You're like, hey, how's it
Yep.
going? Hey.
Yep. Going to the game tonight? Yep.
Yep. Homecoming game. The whole town shows
Yep.
up.
We'll see you there. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So if I'm reading your book, what would you say is one of the things that you would hope, or one of the takeaways that you'd hope I'd get from it by the time I close it?
I think in the book, so Pete's friend Wendy Ray that I mentioned, a couple different times he says to Pete, everything that the creator makes has value, but a man must choose whether or not to see it. And I think that really hopefully comes out in the book. That's something I would want people to take away, thinking about that idea of, am I choosing to see the value, the good in these things, or am I just like even the garbage man, things like that? Or am I just, they're just there and I don't pay any attention, and you're missing out on the treasure that's right under your nose.
I love that. It's like what's the phrase? One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Have you ever gone into like those craft shows where you're like, they literally picked through the garbage and they turned these crazy art pieces out of it, and you're like, what?
Yeah. I love that stuff. I love repurposed stuff, repurposing crafts, and I've done some of that. I love it.
Yeah. I haven't done some of that because I'm just not crafty. No, I'm just like, I don't know what to do with it, but it's a good idea for someone.
I love to just like, we had a trampoline that it died.
Yeah.
It just, it was like 6 years old or more. So it died. So I took the springs off and I spray painted them and hung them like this so that they're like hanging from the shed. And then they have hooks on the bottom because that was how they work with the spring. So at the bottom where the hooks are, then if I find something interesting, like one of them's like a little bell and one's like an old key, then I hang it on the hook and it hangs from
that's so simple, but so cool. I love that.
And I could not bear to throw those in the garbage. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So
your brother was probably happy too. You didn't have to come haul those away.
All these metal springs. I'm like, there's got to be something I can do with this. I cannot throw these away.
Yeah. My mom used to do that with old tools. She'd find old tools and she had a shed and she would hang all the old tools on the outside of the old shed.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I'm kind of like, this is either really quaint, Mom, or really creepy because there's like pitchforks on the side of this shed. And if somebody runs into it in the middle of the night, we have a problem.
Yeah, that's true. But
yeah.
I mean, in the zombie apocalypse, though, it might not be a bad place to be.
No, that's where I'm headed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love it. No, that's a neat idea with the springs, though. Now I want to go look and see what I can repurpose.
Yeah,
probably won't be too much, but
some spray paint. Usually sometimes just some spray paint you can totally give something new life. Yeah,
it's a great idea. I love that. And did you use red spray paint?
No, because I wanted to use spray paint that I already had.
Aha. Yep.
And I had orange and teal. So that's what I used. Yeah.
That works. Yeah. I know you like red. So
yeah, no, if I would have had red, I would have used it. I didn't want to go buy new spray paint until I used the spray paint that I already had.
It's good stewardship.
Yes.
There you go. Yep. It's very good stewardship. Well, the wind blows in sleeping grass. It's not too much of a mouthful. It really isn't. It's just I can't read my handwriting and I had written it down. I was going to say the wind blows in spring, and I'm like, no, that's not it. The wind blows in sleeping grass comes out September 26th.
Yes.
And is available for pre-order now. So if you're hearing this before the 26th, you'll want to grab your pre-order so you get it ASAP. And it sounds like a delightful book, but also one that's thought-provoking and get us thinking a little bit.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I like for people to walk away from my stories
Yeah.
thinking about having with questions. Like I don't really care too much about answering questions in my stories.
Hmm.
I'm more concerned with asking
Asking
questions.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a thing that culture needs more of is the permission to ask questions, and even the tough
Yeah.
ones, for
And
sure.
explore. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't have
absolutely.
to have the answers, and
No.
my stories typically don't wrap up with a bow at the end. They're usually
Hmm.
pretty open-ended,
Hmm.
and that bothers some people, because they want to have an ending, they
Right.
want a resolution.
Right.
Um, and that's just not where I'm going with it. So,
Yeah. Well, and life isn't unfortunately like that. So it's nice to have,
right.
I mean, we always need those happily ever afters
Yeah.
type stories, but it
And
is
I
nice
like
to,
those too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's nice to have stories that are thought provoking and make you think and give you something to chew on after you. Those are the books that tend to really stick with you, or at least they do with
Mhm.
me, because I'm thinking
Yeah.
about them a long time after I've closed the book. So cool. Well, if readers want to follow you and find out more about you and your other books that you have available, where should they go?
KatiePowner.com will have the links to all of my
Okay,
socials and blogs and pre-orders and all the
perfect.
links.
All the links are there. Well,
Yep.
Moline, thank you so much for being on the show. You've been really quiet today, but we
Yeah.
appreciate your
But
presence.
she's just here to make sure I don't embarrass myself.
Yeah, I think she did a good job because you did not embarrass yourself, at least not that I saw. So, Katie, it's been so fun to have you here again, and we'll look forward to next time.
Thanks so much for having me.